The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the March 24th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Council Member Urha for our ceremonial opening.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, really.
Thank you very much, Mayor. In exactly 10 days from today, the town of Cary will be 1 year older. Incorporated on April 3rd, 1871, Cary will turn 151 years old. And I guess you can say a lot has changed since 1871. In 1871, Cary made up exactly 1 square mile right here in downtown Cary. And today it's approximately 60 square miles. And the population, well, that's another story in and of itself. It's grown from perhaps a couple hundred people in 1871 to now, of course, being the seventh largest municipality in North Carolina, and it's approximately the 150th largest municipality in the United States. And that surprised me when I read that. And there are more people in Cary than in 85 of North Carolina's 100 counties. And there are more people in Cary than approximately in 45 countries of the world. Cary has grown, but some things haven't changed. We're still on the cutting edge of technological advances, just as we were when Frank Page opened his mill with machinery that had never before been seen in the Southeast. That was high tech in those days. And then there was Uncle Bob Harrison, who had patents on numerous farm implements, and he was said to have discovered wireless telegraphy before Marconi. And in the field of education, Cary schools attracted students from all over the state in the 1800s. And today, of course, some of North Carolina's best schools, both public and private, are found in Cary. And finally, there's the people themselves. The biggest difference is that Cary citizens are much more diverse today than ever before, and that happily adds to the richness of Cary's fabric. But I believe the vast majority of all of today's citizens have something in common with those in the early days. And it's summed up in my favorite quote from that 1883 newspaper article. And I quote, "Cary citizens are proud of their town, and they think that there is no other more desirable place to live in the state of North Carolina." This is 1883. "And generation after generation, this town pride lasts." And if you ask me, I believe it has. Some things change, some things remain the same. Happy birthday, Cary, and I'd like you now to show your pride in your country by pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. I want copies of that. I love those facts. I'll be using those later this year. The larger than any municipality in South Carolina is getting kind of old. I need new fodder.
New material.
in more area than Paris.
Yeah, and yeah,
That's when
That's
you-
right.
1/3 larger than Paris. That's right. Okay, we are about to adopt tonight's agenda with two changes. First change is sublease agreements at Wake Med Soccer Park with Carolina FC and NCWFC will be moved to the April 7th meeting for more time to finalize related documents. The second change, the applicant for 21 REZ08, the terraces at West Cary, has requested this discussion item be removed to allow the applicants more time to work on their case. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There are no recognitions, reports, or presentations, so we'll move to Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum online and on the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out through written comments, calling in, or attending in person. If you are here in person and would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are shown as reserved. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any town-related topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your benefit because you get more time to speak at a public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer on the podium, and it starts off with a green light. When it turns yellow, you have 30 seconds remaining, and when it flashes red, that's the point I'll interrupt you. Again, not trying to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. I thank everyone in the audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from the meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'm going to call on our town clerk to summarize any written comments and call on any call-in speakers.
We had one written comment from Nick Barslow. He wrote in to request that you deny the funding of the Meridian Downtown Development Project and outlined his reasons in the handout in front of you. We also have one call-in speaker, Mary Ann Barslow. Would you confirm that you're on the line?
Yeah.
Please proceed.
Imagine a town where the air is polluted, making us cough. The air quality has to be checked before opening a window. When we do go outside, our eyes water and we have to wear a mask. The temperature may be as hot as 140 degrees Fahrenheit for more than a month each year. In public restrooms, we have to pay to use water. What I'm describing is the real possibility of our town by 2050, according to the Paris Climate Agreement scientists. Now, these scientists are focusing on 2030 for cutting emissions and averting these climate disasters. Cristina Figueres, a key architect of the Paris Agreement, has stated that 2030 is the cutoff date by which time we will be choosing between a world of constant and increasing destruction and human misery or a world that is actually much, much better than what we have now. According to these climate experts and over 200 countries who signed on to the Paris Climate Accords, it is no exaggeration to say that what we do regarding emission reductions between now and 2030 will determine our quality of life for hundreds of years to come. With the extensive redevelopment of Cary, this town council has the choice to support measures that will benefit the quality of life in Cary for years to come, or to continue to contribute to the severe degradation of our air quality, heat index, and subsequent health issues. 2030 is only 8 years from now. How is Cary striving for a 50% carbon reduction by then? The Meridian project stands to wipe out the last remaining forest in downtown. What significant environmental measures will this town council insist on to approve this project? Will the design of the building flex around champion trees as Cary's Environmental Advisory Board's tree recommendations recommend? How will the tree canopy be maximized for wildlife to mitigate water runoff and heat? Will you collaborate with the developer to minimize water runoff through bioretention areas, insist on green roofs, and living walls to offset impermeability, heat, and energy requirements? Will significant shade trees be installed, especially along sidewalks for pedestrians and bikers? In the heart of our downtown, the extensive development happening on Chatham Street, including the Bainbridge Project, Urban Place, 2 Rogers buildings, and the 4.5 acres for the future Jordan Project at the corner of Harrison, have severely handicapped environmental resiliency, and it is already setting the stage for the suffering of what climate experts are warning of. We only have 8 years to get it right. Develop responsibly for the residents of this town. Our future of suffering is at the moment unwritten, and it will be shaped by the actions you choose now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other call-in speakers?
No additional call-in speakers.
At this time, I would invite speakers in the audience that would like to speak at Public Speaks Out. I want to invite you forward at this time.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council members, and staff. My name is Mark Barker with Northview Partners. I'm also speaking on behalf of my development partners, George Jordan and Jordan Gussenhoven. Tonight, you will be voting on the development agreement for the Meridian East Chatham project. And first, I want to thank the Mayor and Town Council for their leadership and vision for downtown. Without your commitment, downtown would not have achieved the success that has occurred. I recall on the chamber trip to Greenville, South Carolina a few years back, the dialogue and discussion on how much time and effort it would take to achieve the vision of downtown becoming a vibrant component of Cary. On that trip, I recall the Greenville leaders telling us that downtown would need to have something to draw people to it, and through your leadership, the park is now under construction. In addition, there are a number of other public-private projects occurring in downtown that reflect your commitment to downtown revitalization. I've been working with George and Jordan on the property involved in this project since 2014. As you all know, their family has been involved in downtown for decades. Hopefully tonight will be a significant milestone in the continued public-private effort to make downtown a vibrant component of Cary. Most downtown projects have a measure of complexity, and this one is no different. It involves 9 different parcels of land, a road extension, and the building project itself is more than 420,000 square feet. It has taken us a while to get to this point. Complicated projects are challenging and generally take a long time to develop. We want to thank staff for their hard work, professionalism, and for pushing and challenging us on the project design. Going through the design and review of this project essentially in a virtual format had its challenges, but we appreciate staff's availability as we've gone through the development plan approval process. We also want to thank our design team of Bass, Nixon, and Kennedy, Klein Design, and Ty and Associates for their efforts in designing a very exciting and significant project for downtown. Our company enjoys working with the town of Cary, and we look forward to working with the town on the Meridian East Chatham project and the Jordan Building project at Harrison Avenue and Chatham Street, and hopefully more to come. Thank you, and we appreciate your continued support of downtown projects.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to our 4th item, which is the consent agenda portion of tonight's meeting. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all consent agenda items. On the consent agenda, we have a technical correction to Cary's official zoning map, setting the public hearing date for 21A15 Hogan annexation, NC Land and Water Fund Grant for the White Oak Creek Management Plan. Would council members like any one of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion to approve? Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for Public Speaks Out, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes for their comments instead of 3. Our first public hearing is item 5.1, which is 21 REZ 19. Estes Residential Rezoning and Associate Planning Director Deborah Grannon will present the item. Council will not take action on this item tonight. Instead, it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and their recommendation, and will return to us at a later date. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. For your consideration is a request to rezone 6 acres located at 7824 Emery Gale Lane. The subject property is located adjacent to Green Level Church Road and Mills Road. The site is adjacent to a rezoning case that you heard last October for approximately 33 acres located to the north of the site. The existing zoning is residential 40. The applicant is proposing residential 12 conditional use, and R12 means 12,000 square foot minimum lot sizes. And the applicant has also proposed additional conditions, that they limit the density to 15 detached dwelling units, which equates to about 2.5 dwelling units per acre, and accessory uses and neighborhood recreation, that the lot area calculations exclude adjacent riparian buffer area. So that means the actual lot size would have to be a minimum of 12,000 square feet. That they provide a 30-foot wide buffer along Emery Gale Lane. And that all lots would access Mills Road or Green Level Church Road through a network of private streets. I mentioned a moment ago this adjacent zoning for the 33 acres to the north, and what the applicant hopes to do is be able to have a cohesive development incorporating this lot into that development. There was a question as to why they didn't bring that in to begin with. They didn't have a contract for it. But I would like to point out what they're looking at right now is a density of 2.5 dwelling units per acre with these 15 lots on that 6-acre parcel. The adjacent property density equated to 55 units and 1.67 dwelling units per acre. So that's a total of 70. So even if they had brought it in at the same time, it would not have triggered a traffic study. According to our GIS maps, it does appear there's a slight stream buffer impact, and that will be determined at the time of development plan review. There is a utility pole on the subject property, and whether or not Duke Power would support installing something for such a short segment is something we'll have to evaluate more carefully at the time of development plan review. It is an LDO requirement, but in some cases, Duke Power would say it's too short for them to do that installation below ground. Green Level Church Road is a 2-lane thoroughfare. Emery Gale Lane is a private road access drive. There are currently no transit facilities in the area, but the area is being studied for possible consideration for future transit routes. Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan shows that there's a future greenway trail not on the subject property, but adjacent to the property that was rezoned last October. In our preliminary analysis of the request against policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, we see that the Live, Engage, Shape, and Serve chapters are all applicable. This would be residential infill development. There are efforts being made to preserve the historic context of the area, and this would preserve and maintain a quality development. And then there's also some efforts with this low density to help preserve tree canopy. I note that the site is also located in the Green Level Special Planning Area. So in the Green Level Special Planning Area, which is outlined in red, the subject property is depicted with the red star. And what this area calls for is a density of about 3 dwelling units per acre. And as I mentioned, the applicants condition this to come in at no more than 2.5. So it is consistent with that. They're also proposing to help shield the view by putting in some additional buffer area along that private road, Emery Gale Lane. So that's helping with the policies of the SPA of helping to preserve the natural view shed and screen development from the roads. Staff facilitated a neighborhood meeting on January 12th of this year. There were 6 citizens who attended. Their concerns were about maintenance and improvements on Emery Gale Lane, that private road, and a desire to see that road become public. They also had concerns about traffic impacts on Mills Road and entering and exiting the site from that location. We've had 3 follow-up emails since then with process questions and then additional questions about accessing the site. Property owners within 800 feet of the subject property were notified by mail, which exceeds both the LDO and the state requirements, and we posted the property with a public hearing sign and put notification on the town's website. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative, Jason Barron, is here to speak, and then following his comments and the public hearing, I will be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grant.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant in this case. Deborah's kind of summarized everything that I otherwise would have said. Just want to clarify, in terms of access, I think Deborah meant to say that all lots will access Mills Road or Green Level Church through public streets, not private streets. Just want to clarify that. That's the rare opportunity I have to correct Deborah on part of her presentation. So I'm taking full advantage of it. But to be clear, all of the traffic that will be generated by these 15 lots will go through the adjacent Mills site. Yeah. That was the site that you all zoned last year. It will be developed in concert. Yeah. Emery Gale is a private drive. We had questions from the folks who share access on that private drive. When I first got a call about the case, I told the client, we can't touch Emery Gale. The last thing you want to do for people who live on a county road that's subject to private access is take Town of Cary traffic and pour it onto that county road. So the plan all along had been to stay off of Emery Gale, have the property traffic all feed out to Mills Road. That remains the plan all along. We met with those neighbors, and notwithstanding the fact that we won't be impacting it upon development, my client has agreed, and this doesn't relate to the zoning case, it's a private agreement, but has agreed with those folks to fund ongoing maintenance of the existing Emery Gale private drive, and then also to improve it, essentially to pave it. So they've worked out a financial arrangement between my client and those owners to improve the gravel drive to pavement. And so with that, here to answer any questions. Look forward to seeing you all again in a couple months. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Now it's time for the public hearing for 21 RZ 19, and I'll call on the clerk to summarize any written comments.
We had one written comment. It was from Pistachio Joe supports the development based upon the agreement that was made on at the March 16th meeting with the applicant, which he is detailed in his handout in front of you.
Okay, any call-in speakers?
No call-in speakers.
All right. Now's time for those in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing to come forward. Any speakers for 21 REZ 19?
Good evening. I literally just got off of 85 driving in from Washington DC, so
wow.
I apologize.
God bless
Deep
you.
breath, you're good.
Racing to get here. I've spoken quite a bit with you over the last few months leading up to the approved rezoning for 21, for Mills Residential. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time. We've already talked about this. At the Woodlands, and I think I'm interpreting this correctly, we are still concerned about the traffic. The only access point to Green Level Church Road is by way of Mills Road. I know Emery Gale is there, but that's not a public street. And I don't know if I'm clearly understanding how that street will continue to be in play. But I'm just expressing that we're now looking at 175 homes instead of the original 150. And our concerns remain the same. I don't need to repeat what I've written here. You've heard it 3 or 4 times now. So please, I think the applicant is here. I would like a little bit further understanding of the effort maybe with DOT to have a direct access to Green Level Church Road. Has there been any discussion with them? I just think as a community, we are really concerned about that increased traffic. And long-term, if we lose access, an open medium at Ashley Roads, it's going to be even more concerning that our direct access to Green Level Church Road will be, along with the other 175 homes, will be by way of Mills Road. Thank you.
So before you leave, could you give us your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You just got here. You're good.
Just got here. Wilma Slade. Of course, they know me.
Thank you.
And I do have to thank the applicant for looking at these options and talking about Emery Gale. And of course, Ms. Redling, I've spent lots of time with transportation, with DOT, and they've given me their perspective, but I want to hear the applicants.
Okay.
And how they got to the decision not to pursue Green Level Church Road.
Thank you. Any other speakers for 21 REZ 19? I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments.
All right.
Looks like Ms. Robinson's ready to go.
I have some questions, and following up on Ms. Slade's questions. Deborah, in the proposed conditions, it says that all lots will access Mills Road or Green Level Church Road through public streets. So is there a road that is planned to come directly out to Green Level Church Road that is not Emery Gale?
Not at this time, no, because that's not part of this property. It's not part of the
Okay,
proposal.
so where is that? Are they putting a stub in? Is that what they're going to do, is kind of stub the property?
They would need to stub the property.
Okay.
And Mr. Barron certainly can speak to any additional negotiations that he's been having with adjacent property owners on this, but yes, they would be required to stub the property in the event there is development between this property and Green Level Church Road.
Okay, so even though it says the condition is that all lots will access Green Level Church Road, it's an either or. It says Mills Road or Green Level Church, so that's
Right.
why they're,
Right, so if that becomes a public street, there's a requirement in our standard specifications and details that lots have access to public streets, not just frontage on public streets,
Right.
but a network to get out to a public road.
right, and Jan and I were a little confused by that, because it looks like, and tell us what it is. Is there, in our comprehensive transportation plan, is there a plan to connect Green Level Church Road via Emery Gale, connecting over to Ridgeback Road to the southwest?
Not at this time, no.
Is not in our plan. Okay, but we do have that requirement that a project needs to have a north,
Right.
east, southwest connector, and that's what they're accomplishing by putting a stub in.
Right.
Okay, I think it'd be good to hear from Jason, if
Sure,
that's okay, so we
absolutely.
can understand
Mr.
this
Barron?
better.
And I
Where'd you
think-
go? Oh, there he is.
I also think, you're talking about on slide 22, where the bottom of it says, all lots access Mills Road or Green Level Church Road through public streets.
Right,
But
and it
no
could be.
lots
yeah.
access,
It could be a circuitous route coming through this existing approved entitlement to the north.
but no lots access Green Level Church.
Because it says or, it's not
Right.
and.
Right.
It doesn't say Mills Road and Green Level Church Road, it says or.
Correct, that's
And
why
they're-
it's
They're going
confusing.
with the Mills Road option.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So they really.
Mr. Barron, please, please take it away.
So just for a little bit more background information for the benefit of you all, and I don't know why the mouse is not cooperating. There we go. So as Deborah indicated, we're going to be stubbing to the adjacent property line as part of development of the Estes site. The Mills site is working through the development plan approval process right now, and the plan is to have 2 access points out onto Mills Road, one in this location here and one generally in this location here. We looked at the possibility early on of having an access out onto Green Level Church Road, but given the curvature of that lane, the distance from the existing Mills Road, because that remains the same, it made more sense from a safety standpoint with the traffic that's coming out of here to send the traffic to Mills Road, because there's not a lot of traffic on Mills Road as there is. And with this development, it's still just 70 homes. I want to clarify, it's not 170, it's just 70 homes coming from our development. I also want to point out that as part of the development plan process, we're actually stubbing a road to this property as well. And what we liked about that was the possibility of being able to stub here, and then when these sites redevelop, you have the possibility of extending a road that would tee into this intersection and would in fact provide that additional point of access. So rather than having one at a curve close to Mills Road, it would provide for better breaks along Green Level Church. So that was essentially the methodology that was used by the engineers in the room, not the Jason Barrons in the room, in determining where the access points would be for this overall development.
Do you know how many linear feet it is from Mills Road down to that little stub road?
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay, I was just curious, because if it was under 1,200, then DOT would.
Oh, it's under 1,200.
Yeah, because
Yep.
they won't, I mean, I don't know if somebody from transportation can correct me, but I think they won't approve a full access.
Yeah,
If it's
I'm wholly
under-
unqualified to stand up
Yeah,
publicly and
that's
say that I
okay.
can answer those intelligence.
That's all right. So Emery Gale, even though you guys are paving it, there's not going to be any future stub out to it or anything like that? There's no, like someday these two could connect if they,
No, we are definitely stubbing to the existing Emery Gale right-of-way.
You are?
Yes, there's a
Okay.
private drive. We're going to be stubbing to it. There will be a buffer put up until it's time to connect. At some point, maybe the church ends up selling, because that Emery Gale crosses the church property. That's all owned by the church. At some point, maybe they end up selling it off, and that gets dedicated as a public street. I don't know how alignment would work, but we would be positioned at that point to be able to put our traffic onto a future public street, Emery Gale. But right now, it's private, and we didn't want to burden the private drives. So that's why it said either or, because we don't know what's going to happen with the other ones, and we just want to leave open the possibility.
okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Barron.
Great, sure thing.
No other questions? Okay. This will go to our Planning and Zoning Board, and we'll probably see this in a few months. All right, that takes us to our second public hearing, 21 REZ 14, which is 9518 and 9520 Chapel Hill Road rezoning, and planner Heather Whelan. Hey, welcome.
Yes, good evening.
We'll present the item, and council will not take action on this item this evening, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. Is this your first visit?
It is. It's nice
Welcome.
to be here with you. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing for 21 REZ 14, a request to rezone 5.85 acres at 9518 and 9520 Chapel Hill Road from the current zoning of R40, residential 40, to TRCU, Transitional Residential Conditional Use. These properties are along Chapel Hill Road, just east of the Morrisville-Cary municipal border. Cary corporate limits are shown here, shaded in blue. Cary's GIS maps indicate a small portion of the site's northeastern property boundary abuts a potential stream buffer. Determination will be made at the time of development plan review. This is the view of the site in relation to Chapel Hill Road looking east. There are overhead power lines along the property frontage, and due to the short amount of road frontage, we do not anticipate that the lines will be buried. However, we will review this in more detail during development plan review. There are two existing Wilson Road segments to the north and south of this site, shown here in green. The development of these properties requires the applicant to complete the unfinished portion of Wilson Road traversing this site. Completion of this segment will connect Wilson Road from Chapel Hill Road to Northwest Cary Parkway. Two transit routes currently serve Chapel Hill Road adjacent to the property. Chapel Hill Road is also currently being studied as a potential rapid bus corridor between downtown Cary and Research Triangle Park. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan does not identify any proposed parks within or immediately adjacent to the site. Robert Godbold Park is the closest existing park, located about a mile to the east. There aren't any proposed greenways, corridors within the site. However, the Chapel Hill Road Street Side Trail will be constructed as a part of the development plan process. Both properties are currently zoned R40, residential 40. The applicant proposes to rezone to TRCU, Transitional Residential Conditional Use. The applicant has offered several conditions. These include limiting uses to townhouses and neighborhood recreation, limiting the units to a maximum of 32 or just under 6 units per acre, providing a minimum of 3,700 square feet of community gathering space, which is more than triple the LDO requirement, providing 2-car wide garages for each unit, providing a 30-foot wide type A streetscape along Wilson Road, and offering that no townhouse be constructed within 50 feet of the northern property line. Live, work, shape, move, and engage policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan are most relevant to this request. The proposal could support live policies by expanding housing choices for residents and supporting residential development on infill sites. It may also help support the work chapter by providing housing options to support a sustainable and diverse workforce. And in terms of the shape chapter, this rezoning proposes infill development on an underperforming site along the Chapel Hill Road corridor and incorporates appropriate transitions to adjacent neighborhoods and nearby commercial uses. This proposal also supports the move chapter, as the development of these properties will facilitate the completion of Wilson Road, which helps ensure safety and a well-maintained road network. The site currently contains 2 houses, both of which were originally constructed in the early 1900s. Cary's historic preservation staff coordinated a site visit with Capital Area Preservation to assess the houses. CAP found that the houses possess little historic integrity, and therefore they are not a preservation priority. CAP did recommend salvaging some original elements from 9520 Chapel Hill Road. That's the White House on the right. CAP noted original interior doors, wood paneling, and support beams as potentially valuable for reuse. The applicant is aware of these recommendations and has expressed interest in donating the salvageable materials. The Future Growth Framework map designates the subject site with the traditional neighborhood development category. Traditional neighborhoods include moderate amounts of housing types, including large and small lot, detached dwellings, townhomes, and multifamily. Transitional residential is one zoning district the Cary Community Plan lists as potentially appropriate, and notes that properties considered for infill or redevelopment may include higher density uses. Staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting in November. 18 citizens attended. Comments included concern for increased traffic on Wilson Road, a request that the applicant consider detached dwellings, and questions about parking requirements. Staff has now received 1 call and 4 emails since the neighborhood meeting. Those comments were regarding street connections and traffic on Wilson Road. We mailed public hearing notification to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site, and this exceeds both the state's and Cary's LDO requirements. This concludes my presentation. Following the applicant's comments and the public hearing, I'm available to answer any questions. Glenda Top, the applicant's representative, is here this evening and ready to speak with you. Ms. Top?
Thank you, Ms. Whelan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. It's nice to be before you again. It seems like it's been longer each time. Also, it's been a delight working with Heather. You hired another good person, so she's doing a great job. She pretty much said everything I was going to say, but I do want to point out a couple of things. One, as she pointed out, the designation in the growth plan calls for it to be a traditional neighborhood, which does allow for both attached and detached development. As you know, this part of Cary has seen a lot of development lately between the Temple and the really combination of both attached and detached units. I think it's been a very positive move in that it's a key entrance into Cary, and we've seen a lot of good development occur. We are complying with the town's transportation network. We will be completing Wilson Road. There'll be a part of Chapel Hill Road that will be connected. What I do want to add is there was some concern about visitor parking. We did add a condition that each unit will have a 2-car garage. And from feedback from staff, we have added 2 additional conditions. One, and we'll have to work on the exact wording of this, but the owners of the property have agreed to either preserve or donate the salvageable material in the house that capital area preservation identified, so we will make that a zoning condition. And also, we know that it's important that the serve chapter be looked at, so we've added a condition that each unit shall include a 60-amp receptacle in the garage for connection of electric vehicle charging equipment. So with that, I am here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Top. So now's the time for the public hearing for 21 REZ 14, which is at 9518 and 9520 Chapel Hill Road. And I'm going to call on the clerk at this time to summarize the written comments.
So we had 4 written comments. The first one from Julie Murphy, who opposed the rezonings with concerns about the connecting the Wilson Road to Sunrise Road. Donald Patterson requested council to install a medium barrier for the turning lane on Chapel Hill Road. Also expressed concerns about parking availability. Christina Singer expressed the same concerns about the turn lane and the guest parking. And then Carissa McConnell opposes the development due to the concerns about the connection between Wilson Road and Sunrise Road.
Very good. Do we have any call-in speakers?
No call-in speakers.
All right. Now's the time for 21 REZ 14, rezoning public hearing, and I would invite anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this public hearing to come forward. Anyone at all? Seeing no one, I'll close the, are you speaking? Yes, sir. Yes, please.
It would be helpful. My name is Bal Sharma. I'm one of the owners of the owner group.
Could you give us your address, please?
I live in 717 Flip Trail
Thank
in
you.
Woodson Place.
Thank you.
Just a block from this property. And I think the way I understood is the concern about the connecting to the Sunrise Road. That's not going to happen because there is Mr. Cooper's property in the middle. This is future, a road connected to Sunrise. There is no Sunrise Road coming to Wilson right now with this development. I just wanted to make sure that what is understood and what is happening is the same thing. Did I correct, or did I make a?
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? All right, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. I have one question. There's concern about connectivity. I want to clarify that the south part of Wilson Road, if you access that now, you can still get to Cary Parkway there via some left and right turns, but you can still get there, right? Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so we're not introducing cut-through traffic. We're just introducing a straight line of traffic on Wilson Road.
That's right.
That's always been designated to be connected. Okay, thank you. Other questions? Ms. Robinson?
Let Lori go first
Okay.
this time, and then I'll talk.
Ms. Bush?
Just a couple of questions. The applicant is responsible for improving the road in front of, on Chapel Hill. What will that be widened to, and will that also include the sidewalk?
That's a 6-lane divided median, landscape median road cross-section, so it will be widened to that standard and include the sidewalk.
Okay, and are there, to my knowledge, like, I have a concern about that, but there's no crosswalk across Chapel Hill Road, to my knowledge, not until you get to the intersection. Will there be one added, and if so, where?
From the north side of Chapel Hill to the south side? That would be something our transportation staff would be looking at to determine where those crosswalks would be appropriate.
I'll just say that on this side, because I travel this road quite a bit, there's a lot of foot traffic across Chapel Hill Road to that multi-use center, and it's quite dangerous, and nobody wants to go all the way up to the intersection, cross, and go all the way back down. Plus, there's a lot of foot traffic across to the temple, and it's a pretty scary area because there's a turn right there, and there's no sidewalk on either side.
Yeah.
So I hope that staff will take a look at that and work with the applicant to improve that. I thought you mentioned that it was going to be 6 lanes. I thought we were re-looking at Chapel Hill because of the BRT, and it might not be 6 lanes.
So the Chapel Hill Road Mobility Corridor Study goes from Maynard, the Lowe's intersection,
Right.
to the other Maynard, so inside the Maynard Loop. So this is just west of the scope of that study.
Yeah, my recollection is that we had some kind of back and forth about whether we should allow this to be 6-lane median divided, because we were like, well, we don't want any roads in Cary to really be 6 lanes. And our staff at that time said that there's such a high likelihood of having BRT on this corridor, they wanted to make sure that we had the corridor secured for that in the future. So I think it's like to be determined.
That's, Jennifer, that's 100% accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it won't be built out, it will be made or just held? What will be built?
Mr. Jensen knows.
Yeah, I thought maybe I could help. So we had a lot of discussion about keeping this road as a 6-lane undivided or divided roadway. But at that time, though, we had a lot of consternation about whether we really wanted 6 lanes. And so we've always planned for 6 lanes, but we may not build 6 lanes. Probably what we would do is build a wider median in that 6-lane section so that in the eventuality, if we have BRT coming up that corridor, we could take it out of the median. But again, we've never planned for it to be initially built out as 6 lanes. We've always planned for it to be built out as 4.
I see. Okay.
But just have an extra wide median. And go back to your question about accessibility for pedestrians, we've got to figure out a way to get the sidewalks completed on both sides, and then mid-block crossings with probably some sort of pedestrian hybrid beacon where we can safely get them across the road, because there's no way we would allow them to cross the roads unprotected in this area.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. 2 things. we've been talking recently about our concern about townhome communities not having enough visitor parking. So I do want to say to the applicant, I'm not sure where he is now, that I do love that they put in a condition for 2 side-by-side car garage, and I love that they put the charger in there. That's awesome. Are the driveway lengths going to be long enough? Like, by our LDO standards, are they already long enough to be able to support a car in each, 2 cars in the driveway in addition to the garage? Or is that something that they would want to add as a condition to make sure that we have enough length in that driveway?
They have to be at least 18 feet
Okay.
setback.
So
which
then it
is-
should be-
Which is enough to accommodate 2 vehicles.
Okay.
And a sidewalk?
I would have to confirm with our development review staff to see what that cross-section would look like.
I've seen that problem in townhome communities
Yeah.
where the cars are parked in the townhome community, but it blocks the sidewalk. So if you're a walker, you gotta walk around the
We've
cars.
adjusted that. That was a problem with the older developments, but now we make sure that there is the driveway length exclusive of the sidewalk.
Perfect. You guys are so awesome. I have one more thing. Staff has in recent months been telling us about the above-ground wires. And for those of you who don't know why our staff is telling us that, it's because we were noticing that the streetscape buffer is often in the same place as the wires, and people plant these beautiful trees, and then the trees grow up, and then Duke Energy comes and cuts them all off because of the conflict. So I want to make sure, and we're in situations like this one where those wires are going to be there. They're not going to bury it for this little segment. I want to make sure that the landscaping is done in a way that's sympathetic to the fact that there are overhead wires and that they're short enough, they cap out naturally, so they don't end up having to be cut down.
Yeah, the 30-foot wide streetscape along Wilson, the full language of that condition actually says outside of any power easements. So
Awesome,
it's going to
okay.
be outside of assuming that those power lines are there. And if they someday are not there, then, at the time of development, then that could look different. But
Okay.
yeah, we consider that.
Are there wires on Chapel Hill Road as well?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
would the same thing go there, that their streetscape buffer won't encroach on the wires there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's wonderful news. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Yerha?
Mrs. Top is a mind reader. She addressed both of my concerns, the salvaging of some of the indoor wooden doors and paneling, and the adding of the charger, due to making, I guess, Chapter 9, that served chapter, a little more robust. So I'm glad to hear there'll be conditions for both of those, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. I thank you for that.
Other comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Whelan.
Council.
This will go to our Planning and Zoning Board. They'll review it and compare it to the Cary Community Plan, make a recommendation, and we'll see it in a few months. Our next public hearing is 21 REZ 15, which is 109 Appaloosa Trail, and Associate Planning Director Deborah Grannon will once again present the item. Council will not take action on this item tonight, and it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you. This is a request to rezone 7.02 acres located at Appaloosa Trail and New Hope Church Road. You heard during the consent agenda that there's a public hearing pending on this same property, and that'll come before you next month. So the subject property is shown here, highlighted in yellow. The property is located in Chatham County. It is part of the Woods of Chatham neighborhood. The lot currently includes several outbuildings and a barn, but is not currently developed with a residential dwelling. The site is immediately adjacent to the American Tobacco Trail, and access to the property is from Appaloosa Trail, which is a private road. Not a public road, but a private road. New Hope Church Road is designated as a 2-lane, undivided thoroughfare. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan proposes a street side trail along the property frontage, and as I mentioned, the site is directly adjacent to the American Tobacco Trail. The New Hope Disc Golf Course is located to the east of the site, and the New Hope Church Trailhead Park is located to the east of the site. According to Cary's GIS maps, the site is not impacted by any stream buffers. And there are presently no overhead power lines along the property's frontage on New Hope Church Road. The property is zoned Chatham County R1, or Residential 1, and the applicant is proposing Residential 40 conditional use. As I mentioned, there is an annexation petition that will be scheduled for a public hearing at your April 7th Town Council meeting. The rezoning includes several zoning conditions related to the provision of services such as fire protection and solid waste. Conditions proposed by the applicant are that the use be limited to one detached dwelling and accessory uses, that any dwelling fronts New Hope Church Road and has a maximum setback of 200 feet from New Hope Church Road, and that a driveway to the site be located on New Hope Church Road and be within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. And a picture will help to illustrate how these conditions look on the site. This line indicates the 200-foot setback distance from New Hope Church Road. And this yellow arrow shows the furthest point that a driveway would be located so that it's within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant.
Really big fire hydrant.
It is a big fire hydrant. In our initial review of policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, we looked at the Chatham-Cary Joint Land Use Plan, first of all, and it does identify that this property is identified as being very low-density residential, which would equate to one dwelling unit per acre. We also looked at the live, shape, and serve chapters. So with the zoning condition that the applicant has proposed, that they limit this to one detached dwelling, and this is on a 7-acre parcel, it certainly complies with that joint Chatham-Cary Land Use Plan density cap. With the live chapter, it's providing additional large lot housing on a residential neighborhood, adjacent to a residential neighborhood. The R40 conditional use zoning is appropriate within a suburban designation. And then this is also, by proposing one dwelling unit on 7 acres of property, it's looking at good transitions with the existing residential neighborhood. Staff facilitated a neighborhood meeting virtually on December 1st of last year. There were 5 people in attendance. The questions were whether or not this was an involuntary annexation. People were concerned that Cary was annexing this property. And this gave us an opportunity to explain that the annexation is citizen-initiated. Some people refer to that as voluntary, but the property owner came to us and asked for us to annex the property so that he could and his family could access town utilities. Neighbors also wanted to know if some of their HOA covenants would still be in place or if Cary's ordinances would change that. And we were able to explain that those HOA covenants are often more strict than Cary's regulations and that we did not control those. Since the neighborhood meeting, we've had 3 additional calls and emails, generally people wanting to know how they could share comments and in some cases voice support for the request. Property owners within 800 feet of the subject property were notified by mail, exceeding both state law and LDO distance standards. And then we published notice of the public hearing on Cary's website and posted the property. This concludes staff's presentation. The property owner and applicant, Mr. Mark Hogan, is here to speak, and following his comments and the public hearing, I'll be available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon.
Mr. Hogan?
Thanks, Deborah, for your thorough presentation, and thank you, staff, for all of your help facilitating this process. My wife and I and our 2 toddlers are looking to build our home on this property, and due to poor soil conditions, are seeking the ability to connect to town sewer and water. The proposed zoning conditions are intended to be equivalent to the existing Chatham County zoning, while also meeting the town standards for services such as fire. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
All right, now's the time for the public hearing, 21 REZ 15, 109 Appaloosa Trail. And I'll call on our town clerk to summarize any written comments or introduce call-in speakers.
We had 3 written comments. Linda Foss was curious about R40 regulations and how they work. Vivian and Robert Lamb and also Greg Brickham wrote in comments in support of the rezoning.
Any call-in speakers?
No call-in speakers.
All right, now's the time for those in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing to come forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and before I open it up to council members for questions or comments, I just want to clarify, we've been throwing out R40, and if you're not familiar with what that means, that's 1 acre lots. So, okay, council members, any questions or comments about this? Ms. Bush?
Just two. Will this property have access to the American Tobacco Trail?
Yeah, I believe it's immediately adjacent to it.
So that just by right? Is there
Yeah.
any?
I don't know if there's
Thing that's
I don't know if there's a
managed or-
punch through there, if there's a buffer area there. So I have not walked the site. The applicant might be able to tell you whether or not he's cut through the woods to get to it, but
Well, I just
it's
meant by
not a-
right.
yeah.
Are there any rules or regulations to make sure it's
Yeah,
safe?
that is an
entrance?
excellent question. I'll find out from our Parks and Rec department if there's anything. Or Mr. Hogan may know whether or not he has cut through the woods.
Yeah, I've worked with NCDOT to make sure that we can get an encroachment to have the sewer and water pipes go through that property.
Perfect.
But you were thinking about actually
Access.
getting on the trail
Right.
to enjoy
If I
it
had
for
a beautiful
recreation? Yeah.
10-mile greenway in my backyard, I'd want to be able to get to it.
Yeah, our thinking is that with the driveway where it is, it'll just be a short distance, and the future greenway will connect to the trail from there.
Great. The other one is, we're calling this
Thank you, Ms. Hogan.
off of Appaloosa Trail. Will the address be Appaloosa Trail? Will it be Green? What will
That
it
is a great question, and I think we probably will need to look at giving it a New Hope Church Road address. And Mr. Hogan was aware that that was a strong possibility if the access has to be off New Hope Church Road and the house faces New Hope Church Road. That would be our standard. And since the house is not there yet, it's not going to, cause an impact for mail delivery.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, this will go to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and we'll see it at a future date. That concludes the public hearings. We now move into discussion items. Our first discussion item is the consideration of the Meridian Downtown Development Projects. Economic Development Director Ted Boyd will present the item, and council may take action. Mr. Boyd.
Good evening, council. For your consideration tonight is a downtown development project agreement for the Meridian Development Project. The staff report and attached documents cover this agreement in detail. I'll highlight the background, go over the private and public development components, and then talk about the next steps. Our downtown revitalization efforts have been part of a consistent vision and plan, first articulated in 2001 with the Town Center Area Plan, and now with the Imagine Cary Community Plan, which focuses on downtown Cary as one of our 4 special planning areas. Just to highlight, the blue star represents where the property is located, so as a reference as we go through some of the maps. The Meridian project is located within the Business Improvement District. The bid was adopted in 2012 as part of the Downtown Redevelopment Plan. Since inception, Cary has been paying certain development fees as a tool to help advance the timing of private development, and given that success, Council adopted a bid fee mitigation ordinance in 2020. The Meridian Development Project falls within the Central Chatham Street sub-area of the Downtown Special Planning Area. This sub-area is expected to experience significant transformation, as the plan suggests the most intense pattern of development and building height while providing multifamily, residential, employment, and commercial opportunities. High-density mixed-use developments with shared and centrally located parking are contemplated for this area, as well as the future bus rapid transit line. Indicated by the number 5, an improvement considered in the Central Chatham Street sub-area is for the Hunter Street to be extended northward to Cedar Street as a local street connection. The project site is comprised of 8 parcels, approximately 4.9 acres, which are owned by the development team. The blue arrow illustratively depicts the Hunter Street extension, approximately 0.76 acres, which will be dedicated as right-of-way to Cary. The property to the west of the Hunter Street extension, in that shaded area, is the site of the Meridian development, utilizing approximately 3 acres, which are zoned high-intensity mixed-use, or HMXD, and have been going through the staff approval process. The property to the east of Hunter Street extension will be available for future development. We've had great success in our downtown when Cary coordinates public improvements with the private development. The new sidewalks currently under construction along East Chatham Street by the center and the Rogers development are just two examples, and the Meridian development project is similar, and I'll highlight those private and public development aspects. In this rendering, I just wanted to give you a sense of perspective. If you were standing across Chatham Street at the existing Hunter Street, this is the perspective, and to the right would be the Hunter Street extension there. So the development team will construct a 5-story mixed-use project with 220 apartments and approximately 8,200 square feet of retail space. It will have a structured parking garage with 348 spaces. Approximately 40 spaces will be dedicated for retail use, and 15 spaces will have electric vehicle charging stations. Again, this rendering is kind of from Templeton Street, again from the Chatham Street side. The developer will be responsible for the sidewalk along East Chatham Street, which will include soil cells for the street trees as well as some bioretention. The public improvements are highlighted as Hunter Street improvements in blue and East Chatham Street improvements in yellow. The Hunter Street improvements collectively represent the Hunter Street extension from Chatham to Cedar with water, sewer, and stormwater utilities, curb and gutter, sidewalk, soil cells, and on-street parking. The existing Hunter Street between Chatham and Waldo will have water and sewer improvements, and Cedar Street will have sidewalk improvements. The East Chatham Street improvements will include water, sewer, and stormwater improvements from Templeton Street to East Dixon. And regarding the fiscal impact, Cary will be responsible for reimbursing the developer for the public improvements, and Cary will be responsible for reimbursing itself the Business Improvement District fee mitigation. The Hunter Street and Chatham Street public improvements are approximately $3 million. There are approximately $2.4 million appropriated funds within combined downtown, utility, and stormwater projects supporting the majority of the reimbursements, and staff requests council appropriate an additional $556,000 to support the remainder of the Hunter Street and East Chatham Street improvements. Consistent with the bid fee mitigation ordinance, Cary will reimburse itself the $1.55 million required system development fees, transportation development fees, and multifamily recreation fund payments. The bid development fees project has an available balance of $788,428. Therefore, staff requests council appropriate $761,572 to support the remainder of this bid fee mitigation. In terms of next steps, we would just execute the downtown development project agreement, and the construction could begin this summer. As called out in the attached incentive group economic analysis, the Meridian development project reflects an $87.5 million private investment in the core of our downtown, bringing 300+ new downtown residents and over 60 jobs, which will continue to fuel our downtown revitalization. The staff recommendations are highlighted and abbreviated on the screen. This is focused just on the downtown development project agreement, and then the appropriation of $1,317,570 from the general fund balance to support the public street improvements and the business improvement district fee mitigation. I just want to highlight that number is the combination of the public improvements and the bid improvements. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. I'll open it up to council members for questions or comments. Yes, Ms. Robinson.
Well, Don, I mean, this is your district. Do you want to ask anything, or you're up on everything?
I'm totally
Cool.
current on everything. I don't have
Okay.
any questions. I've actually spoke with our staff at length about this to get a better understanding of, the difference between the public improvements, streets, sidewalks, water, utility stuff versus the impact fee mitigation. The impact fee mitigation is nothing new to us. This is something we've been doing for a decade now. It just might seem like a lot because this is the first major project that we've had come across. This is the exact reason that we actually created the Business Improvement District, and as a way to incentivize private investment such as this. I'm glad to see it taking off. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the last one we see. It's always struck me as funny on the we reimburse ourselves. It's kind of like you taking it from your right hip pocket and putting it in your left hip pocket, you know, kind of thing. The Hunter Street improvements have been identified for a long time. They're even identified in the Imagine Cary document, so that is nothing new. The fact that the applicant is donating over $1 million worth of property to us to help make that happen, I think is commendable. But these aren't your typical normal streets either. These are, you know, special streets with the soil cells for trees and the brick pavers and things along those lines. But we're also making some pretty significant water and sewer improvements as well at the same time. One, to put them in the public right of way and not on private property. So if we ever have to go back in there and access it, it's a non-issue, but, you know, get the most bang for the buck as well. So there's already monies appropriated for the Hunter Street project. There's already monies in the downtown account for impact fee reimbursement. We're just having to add a 1.3 or a little over 1.3 from general fund balance to make up the difference. What I found most fascinating, though, was reading the economic impact study that was attached to the report as well. I was very pleased to see that done. I think that really helps put things in context of when we approve things like this, what are we actually going to see 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road and see the return on our investment. You know, we always talk about going to other communities for every dollar they invest, you know, we hope to see 2 back. This is that and then some, or 10.
10 back.
This is significant. I mean, when you look at the 10-year payback alone, it is astonishing. It's not even, it doesn't even take into consideration the how this incentivizes other new development businesses and all those things that come into downtown as well. So, you know, it's that domino effect, and things are really starting to fall and come into place. You know, it's that downtown's been a 20-year overnight success and kind of thing, and we're getting there, and it's exciting. It's been exciting to be a part of it. I appreciate our staff for all the work that you guys do, this council for our vision and commitment to downtown, our community for supporting it, affirming that vision with the Cary Community Plan. It's exciting times, and it's great to be Cary, so I look forward to supporting this.
Okay, then I have questions after that.
Okay.
And I think this doesn't even pertain to what is exactly before us, but Ted, in that northwest corner of the site, is that a parking deck? Like, are we looking at a parking deck, the size, 2 sides of the parking deck on that corner of the project?
I think it would be, let me go.
Yeah, it's not the first image that you showed us. It would be like, I guess, the second one. So it looks like there's a parking deck. Yeah, kind of in that.
So it's in the second group there, it's an access in that's wrapped on that portion in the front, and then you can see a little bit of the parking deck down the left side, but it's
Would
wrapped.
that be the west side of it?
The west side there, and it'll be wrapped
On the
other
north side?
sides.
Okay, so it's just one side exposed. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear it's just one side exposed. I'd say it might be time, and I don't want to stymie downtown development at all, but it might be time for us to just go back and look at our standards for our downtown, and really across the community for other things too, to make sure that our standards are now are still appropriate for this urban environment that we're creating. And, the sides of parking decks, I mean, I think they did it, they mostly wrapped it by choice, but not all developers may choose to do that. So, that with the parking deck, our standards for parking decks, I think the points that were made by the person who wrote in, Nick Barrosow, I'm not, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and maybe Ann Barrosow, regarding green rooftops, I think is an important element here. So I think we need to be looking at our standards going forward. Of course, this one, it wouldn't apply to. But for other projects, I think that might be a real asset for helping us meet our standards downtown and really across town. I mean, I've had this conversation just a few minutes ago, or minutes before the meeting started, with one of our developers and saying, you know, anytime we have buildings that can look down on a rooftop, maybe our new standard needs to be that that rooftop is activated and green. And then, you know, I come in here and we have two people saying the environmental implications of these rooftops can be substantial. So I just want to raise that as a point that.
And I think that's a fair conversation to have town-wide going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see us talk about it just in the context of downtown or just in the context of Fenton. You know, if we're going to talk about it, let's, you know.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
And you also brought up the fact that we heard at Greenville, right, an overnight success that took 20 years. The other thing we heard in Greenville was also you have to start thinking about the real estate in the air.
Yes.
Right, and we haven't ever thought about that until we
Yes.
started getting taller buildings.
That's right.
Well, and the other really cool thing we learned in Greenville.
Are we meaning Greenville, like the trip that we took like 7 years ago?
Oh, God, it's probably been longer than that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, South Carolina.
This is like, yeah, people
Super
keep
full
referencing
downtown.
this trip today. I'm like, really?
But what they found, or explained to us, I mean, they were 20 whatever, maybe more years ahead of us, but they made the public investments.
Right.
You know, they invested in the parking, they invested in the infrastructure.
Right.
Created the demand, people started coming, things started really taking off, the private sector started rolling, and town backed out.
Right.
They didn't have to put the public dollars into it anymore, or at least like they were.
Yeah.
You know, because now the incentive to be there was, they wanted to be there.
The
There
desire,
didn't
right.
have to create anything artificial to bring them.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting close to that. You know, I don't think we're there yet, but Sean's laughing.
Well, I'm always going to want our public dollars to be involved like it is here with.
I want it to be involved in
because you get a better
infrastructure
you get a better
things.
project
I
when
agree.
you participate financially.
But, and maybe I'm generalizing in some
Yeah,
of what they said.
yeah.
But I think the point is that there doesn't have to be that much of a public commitment as downtown continues to evolve.
Right, right.
And things to continue to happen. So that is a time I'm looking forward to. But like I said, we're not quite there yet, but this is exciting. It is really exciting to see things start to come out of the ground and the vision that we've had for decades now start to become reality.
Well, I think,
Yes, please.
I think what I would recommend is, you know, Don, I thought your summary when you asked him was probably the most cogent, to the point, succinct I've heard in a long time. And it goes back to, I think that kind of communication has to be somewhere on our site. Because, you know, people that are kind of new, or they don't understand the complexity of all the other things that are going on and where we might be having a trade-off on you know, like the rooftops on this one, which I think is a great idea what you're saying, because I remember at Oklahoma City, we had these beautiful buildings, and we had, you know, like the Capital City Club in Raleigh, you go up there and you look across the Oklahoma City skyline, it's all rust, you know, it's just
The
air
rooftops,
conditioners
yeah.
and rust and all that. And so the airspace we're talking about is great. But, you know, I've had a couple people approach me and you know, forced me to explain this investment. And I only wish I had a tape recording of what you said. I'm sure I screwed it up. But the point is, this is what with so many people coming and so many new things and the complexity, this goes back to what I think we need on our site, where we have some of that information available somehow. Because, you know, when the way you articulated that and summarized it, if somebody was looking at it and had that reference point, I just think that helps put people's mind at ease that it isn't a giveaway program. And, you know, maybe we can't exactly say a 10-to-1 return, but what we can say is that, you know, the expectation of there is a return, significant return or what. And what I'm finding, just talking to a lot of folks right now, is that there's just a lot of confusion and misinformation. And anything we can do to help that, especially with all the activity going downtown, you know, I think that just bodes well for us all. That's just kind of my perspective. Yeah, I had some people say, you know, I really wish we were still Mayberry, and I said, well, we're not. There's some things we can't, but the settlers are coming. You know, it's our job to make sure that we keep this town to a high standard and that folks understand that we are doing that. I think that's a critical point. Mr. Stigall?
Yeah, I just wanted to amplify what Jack is saying. The reason why we did the incentives report, and that's the first one. You haven't seen those before. Every time going forward when there's a significant investment, and you know what that exactly is that, you know, $25,000? Probably not. But if it's a couple $100,000 or more, we're going to have one of those prepared. And we can be very succinct here that the town's investment, the return is all net after that in 3 years. In 3 years.
amazing.
And this development will be here for a long, long time. So it's that simple. All the incentive we're provided back, we'll get back and more in 3 years. Karen, you like that deal, right? Kim, good deal? Okay, Stacy, good deal. All the finance people,
Right.
yeah, sounds good.
Well,
So that's, to meet that goal, Jack.
Yeah.
So they don't have to understand anything other than 3 years. The money's all back and then more.
Which has been our goal for a lot of our economic incentives,
Yeah.
is to try to have
Three to
it.
five, yeah.
Have it recovered, well, yeah, our goal originally was 3 years, sometimes we let it slide to 5.
But Jack, you know, if you're talking about it as an investment, you're talking about it the right way. You know, because a lot of times we hear wasteful spending, and it's not spending, it's an investment.
I agree.
There is not a person out there that makes $1 without investing something. So,
No.
same thing.
No, I understand that. I mean, it was just, you know, you learn from others around, and I think I got that message across, but I sure as heck didn't do it as well as you just did, and so I'm going to tape that the next time, or I'm going to tape it. But the point is, there's just so many new faces, so many people. You're dealing with kind of old Cary that is still adjusting to some of the investments we're doing downtown. And you got new people that are coming here because we're doing those investments. And it's just a balance. The more information we can share, the more we can put the facts out there, not just on dollars, but also environment. You know, when you look at, if you take, like looking through a straw, if you just take a look at one development in one isolated way, you could make maybe a compelling argument about not enough was done here in this aspect of environment or not. But when you look at the entity as a whole, you look at where we're growing the tree canopy, where we're looking at dealing with all of those carbon issues, then all of a sudden it puts it into perspective. We just have to get better at doing that. I just think that's part of one of our goals.
Other comments?
Yeah, I think our citizens understand the benefits, economic benefits of the, public investments, but I want to reemphasize what Jennifer just talked about, like, when we have green rooftops, such things, and our citizens would understand that this is an environmental benefit that we can bring, especially when the public dollars are involved. We want to be very conscious about, these efforts, so we can talk with the developer, with the development community, that what they can offer, work with the town and to offer this environmental public benefit. And I think that would be a win-win situation.
Great. Other comments? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the attached resolution approving the downtown development project agreement and that we appropriate 1.317572 from the general fund balance to support public street improvements and business improvement district fee mitigation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thank you, Mayor. Our last discussion item is the fiscal year 2022 Street Improvements Bid Award. Transportation Engineer Amir Nazarati will present the item. Council may take action.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'll be providing an update on our street improvements program, including the construction bid award for the 2022 project. The street improvements program plays an important role in preserving, maintaining, and improving our streets. These are streets that our Cary citizens take pride in and use daily. The main scope of our program includes the repaving of neighborhood streets. These streets have various levels of asphalt deficiencies, including cracking, rutting, and potholes that are repaired as part of our program. The key to our street improvements program is that we have a wide range of various pavement maintenance techniques and overall enhancements that highlight a comprehensive street improvements program. This includes pavement patching, which is useful when an otherwise good street has a localized area of poor pavement. Asphalt rejuvenation, which adds properties of asphalt that are lost due to age back into it. And also, as part of our comprehensive approach, we collaborate to include other enhancements to our local streets. This includes stormwater upgrades like new curb and gutter and storm drains, as well as new traffic calming measures like speed humps. Another critical part of our program is the upgrade of ADA curb ramps, as we strive to ensure that all our facilities are accessible, including our sidewalk network. Typically, we're upgrading over 100 curb ramps a year, and this also includes new pavement markings for crosswalks and stop bars. So this year, we've developed a street maintenance plan for the neighborhoods shown here. We have evolved our selection criteria to strengthen our neighborhood approach, and the program this year includes maintenance of over 30 miles of Cary streets. Also this year, we've worked with our utilities and facilities departments to incorporate bicycle and pedestrian improvements along Norwell Boulevard to this year's project. These improvements are needed while sewer rehabilitation and greenway upgrades are occurring in the area. This allows for us to achieve better pricing due to economies of scale and simplified construction in the area. We received 2 bids for the project, with Blythe Construction has been determined to be the lowest responsible bidder, and staff recommends council award the base bid to Blythe Construction for $8,483,627.90 and appropriate the necessary funds for project completion. The work is scheduled to start this spring and completed by the winter. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Nazarati? Or are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to award the base bid to Blythe Construction for $8,483,627.90 and to appropriate the $698,953 from Powell Bill for project completion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I'm a big supporter of having really nice streets.
Yes, yes.
Just saying.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Nazarati.
Thank you.
We have no other business on our agenda this evening, so I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.